Welcome to a new segment of Front Row hosted by Economy.lk. And today I'd like to welcome Mr. Jeevan Gnanam, the chairman of SLASSCOM. Welcome, Jeevan. And Jeevan, you have several years of experience in the IT industry, in the private sector in particular. And the IT industry has been recognized as one of those sectors, a thrust sector, to drive Sri Lanka's economy forward. What do you see as some of the big obstacles in making sure that the IT industry grows in Sri Lanka, as well as making it one of those trust sectors?
Currently, the IT industry is about 1.2 billion. We have to grow to 5 billion by 2022. If you take the revenue per employee, roughly, it's about $24,000 per employee. We currently employ about 80,000 people. So doing the math to reach the $5 billion target, to make a dent in the next year, we probably have to do close to 500 million or roughly employ about 16,000 people in the IT sector. What the constraint I feel will be is that as per 2012 survey, we currently only graduate about 7,000 people in IT graduates. So obviously
through state universities?
Through all universities. IT graduates. This is IT specific graduates. That's not to say that from the 16,000 we can take existing people in the workforce, reskill them, etc., etc. But obviously there seems to be a supply constraint. So one of the priorities that I wanted to choose this year was thinking about how do we make value without really looking at numbers, and instead of thinking about just being an outsourcing destination, how do we add our brains and think about and market ourselves as an innovation platform. So actually last year, earlier this year, we launched Island of Ingenuity, which is Sri Lanka's kind of brand that we're going to take outside, and we're going to market Sri Lanka as a innovation platform or innovation destination. That means you're not looking at cheap outsourcing, but you're looking at innovation, and that's what we're looking at going forward. Priority has been given to this year, where we are launching in November something called AI Nation, which is going to be Sri Lanka's penultimate AI conference, where we will set the agenda for the next 5 years, setting out an AI policy. I strongly believe and feel that if we can do this successfully and raise awareness and capacity in AI, that will really breach our revenue requirement.
Right. I mean, just to go back about what you said before regarding the supply constraint of employment, and that seems to be one of the big factors. Now, in the recently signed Singapore FTA, they've liberalized the IT industry and have allowed a certain sector of kind of employees, the IT industry in general. Do you see that as one of the solutions in terms of maybe importing employees as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very simple. For me, it's if you want to be like Singapore, you got to think like Singaporeans. And what Singapore did very well, in Lee Kuan Yew's time, is not only look at Singapore for solutions, but look at people in the region for solutions. And I believe if we have to get some of these supply constraints sorted out, we need to have better immigration policies and allow people to come and settle, live in Sri Lanka, and eventually they will contribute taxes, obviously buy goods, and it increases markets for Sri Lanka as well.
But now the professional associations, in particular in the IT industry, have criticized the fact that this will drive out the local employees out of the industry. Is that true, or what is going to be? How do we integrate? How do we balance this out?
I think SLASSCOM's thing is very clear. We will first prioritize, obviously, giving the opportunity to locally. But if we can't find those skill sets, sometimes we need to bring in selective skilled immigration, right?
Right. So it's selective skilled immigration.
Selective skilled immigration is the word I'd like to phrase here. and where we target, say there's somebody who is an expert on AI and we don't have that expertise internally, we need to get that person from outside. There's no other way we can get the knowledge transfer going into the country. Obviously, again, I say we prioritize Sri Lanka, but if we can't find those skills, we need to be open to letting them in.
Right. So in terms of the infrastructure that kind of facilitates the IT industry in general, are there any other kind of barriers or kind of what factors may facilitate the IT industry?
I think it's a industry that relies heavily on people. I think the infrastructure problem in terms of grade A office is more or less being sorted out now. And I think, I think we need to do a better job of maybe taking the industry outside of the Western province. Those, there are some initiatives around that. But I think another important thing for the industry to focus on is maybe how do we make Sri Lanka a startup-friendly nation. So one of our initiatives is the 1,000 Startup Initiative. And in this year, I want to really focus on Startup Sri Lanka. How do we have better policies on crowdfunding? How do we have better policies, where we let venture capitalists come and set up here and allow them LLP structures? Those kind of things that we need to really, inform policymakers and get them to understand.
I mean, as you rightly pointed out, a lot of this kind of the IT and the startup culture is mainly focused in the Western province. What is SLASSCOM doing to take that beyond the Western province, to the rural areas in particular, where maybe IT entrepreneurship is not the focus?
Yeah, so we've have outreach programs all the time. 2 weeks ago, we had Southern IT Week, where we went to Martha and Gaul and basically had a startup event there where we, got in people from universities, people in the workplace, and told them about how to do your own startup. It was quite a good session, but more importantly than that, we even go beyond that. We go to the schools. We go to, interestingly enough, the teachers of those schools, and we tell them this is what the future is, right? So we present them. On top of that, we go to the parents, right? And we tell the parents as well, look, change your mindset about startups, and your son or daughter is not a loser if they go do a startup. They actually might be onto something.
And what's the general response like?
I think they've been receptive. Obviously, changing minds doesn't take a day, but I think these are all things that will really add up going into the future.
Right. In terms of the policy environment that helps this or hinders this, what sort of reforms does the government or even future governments need to undertake if they are to kind of help the IT industry to move from a 1.2 billion industry to a 5 billion industry?
I think some reforms are already in place. For example, we're working closely with the government on the national export strategy. And that's to really get the SLASSCOM's IOI brand out there into the region. We are obviously overshadowed by India, and I think we need to do a better job of taking the Sri Lankan brand out there. And this Island of Ingenuity brand, I feel, really showcases Sri Lanka's best efforts. So I think with the National Export Strategy, we'll have various outbound market visits to countries in like Norway, Sweden, US, UK, Japan, Australia, where we're showcasing ourselves and showing our capability, as well as we have inward missions of people coming in. On top of that, we are also in the process with the NES to create a digital platform by which we're constantly in the marketplace and having discussions around that.
Okay. That's great. All the very best, and thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Join us again for another episode of Front Row, hosted by Economy.lk.